All right. Hey, everybody. Says I'm live, so I am going to start talking, even though I can't see myself. Facebook is just being super weird lately. Hi, everybody. It has been, hi, there we go. Now we're streaming. Hello, hello. I am going live on a Sunday afternoon and recording this as a podcast episode to celebrate the fact that I have now officially crossed over 100 podcast episodes. Yay! If I had like a sound editor or something fancy, I would insert some cheers here. But I don't. So I have learned a lot of lessons. I started this podcast roughly 2 years ago. So that's about an episode a week. And so I have learned so much recording this podcast. And I think that you guys will really get something from this, whether or not you want to start a podcast. I don't want this episode to be about me teaching you how to run a podcast. What I'd like to do is share some reflections that I have with you that will help you just in your overall marketing. So I hope that that's good with you. I'm going to dive right in. If you're here on live with me on Facebook, please say hello in the comments. If you are listening to this on the 101st podcast episode, thank you so much for being here with me. I am just so grateful. So I'm going to dive into the things that I have learned. And I want to share with you why I started this podcast. So I heard a piece of advice a little over 2 years ago from a marketer who said something that really resonated with me. And what he said was, if you are someone who loves to write and you just get joy out of writing, you should be writing a blog. If you are someone who loves speaking and talking and listening to podcasts, then you should probably have a podcast. If you are someone who loves taking pictures and communicating through visual medium, then you should probably be heavily on Instagram. So on and so forth, right? What he meant by that, or at least what I took out of that, was that if there is something that you really enjoy, then you should lean into that. And at the time, 2 years ago, I was a podcast addict. I love anything audio. So I love, 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 love listening to audiobooks, love listening to podcasts. And the reason why is because I can listen to podcasts while I'm doing other things. Now, fast forward 2 years, we have Clubhouse, same type of thing. It's an audio platform. I'm not saying audio is the best. Audio is just something that I really liked because I am a busy person. Many of you listening to this are super busy people as well. And I can work out while I'm listening to a podcast. I can, at the time, if I was like biking into work, which I did for a couple years, or driving, even before that, I would listen to podcasts. If I was walking the dog, doing the dishes, these are things that I can do in my daily life while also listening to podcasts. So for me, if I want to reach people who are also busy and also motivated and driven, right? Because those all go hand in hand. People who are bored, I don't want to be around. Motivated, driven people are busy. I want to connect with that type of people. I also want to serve. And so anyways, long story short, I took it as my sign that I should be talking. I should be talking more. I see some encouraging comments coming in, so thank you guys. So anyways, I stood up in front of my mastermind group that I was in at the time, and I said, hey, I want to start a podcast. Everybody at the time was doing Facebook Lives, specifically just for Facebook Live. And I said, hey, look, I like Facebook Lives. I like video. That's great. But I really want to connect with people on audio. And so what I decided to do was to do Facebook Lives, but then strip the audio out specifically for the podcast. So although I do show up here and do Facebook Lives, sometimes I just record straight audio episodes. So Facebook people, you don't get to hear everything unless you are subscribed to the podcast. So you got to go over and subscribe, saraigoddard.com/podcast. Anywho, I'm going to share with you after I started this, the 6 things that I've learned. So I started the podcast. I had no idea what I was doing. I basically went to University of Google and YouTube and spent an entire weekend figuring out what I should be doing. And here is what I knew. I knew that I wanted it to be easy. I didn't necessarily need a fancy mic. You see this microphone. I've got a semi-fancy mic here right now, but I started out with just talking into my phone and recording with these little earbuds, which I actually still use. You don't need anything fancy. And I knew I didn't want it to be highly produced. I know I didn't need a sound editor. I didn't need it to be the best. I didn't need to impress any audio engineers. I just needed to get my message out. And that to me is, if you take nothing else away from this, we all need a platform where we need to be able to get our message out. I don't care what your platform is. I don't care what's Clubhouse, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. If you're using social media to get your message out, pick one and be relentless. So I knew that I wanted to get my message out via this podcast and that I would be able to reach the most amount of people that way around the globe. And flash, like newsflash, it's worked. My podcast, without trying, all organic, no ads, has been very consistently in the top 50 business podcasts in the US in marketing, which is a pretty tough field to rank in. It's been at the top, like consistently, if you search any terms like network marketing or MLM or anything like that, which is really cool. And it's opened so many doors for me. So that's kind of the spoiler alert. Let me give you 6 very specific tips. And if you guys are on live and you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will answer them at the end. So my 6 lessons, 6 things that I've learned. Number 1, if you listen to that story, the thing that I want you to get out of that story is you need to do what you love. There's a whole lot of coaches out there. There's a whole lot of people out there telling you that you need to do what they did to be successful. And I will tell you, although that also may be great advice, the thing that they're not telling you is you need to do what you will love doing, what you're going to be fired up to do. And if you're sitting there thinking, I don't really like to do anything, it's just because you haven't tried it yet. It's because you haven't tried and found what you have loved. And so for me, I knew talking, I like speaking. It's easy for me. It's natural for me. I do it all the time. Super easy way for me to convey a lot of information in a very short amount of time. So I wanted to do that. I encourage you to do that as well. For me, I basically said, screw you to what was super trendy in a couple ways, and I stuck with what I wanted to do. And I wanted my podcast to be me talking to you. I didn't necessarily frame my podcast like 95% of all the other podcasts that are out there on iTunes or Spotify, which is interviews with other experts. That's great. There's a lot of amazing people who know how to market online. And I have interviewed 2 people in 100 episodes, and they are dear friends of mine that are super smart at what they do. But my podcast is about me sharing my journey with you, me giving you encouragement, me giving you tips, me sharing what's working right now in online marketing, specifically for network marketers. And people told me I was crazy. They assumed that I had to have a podcast that was guest format based. And I said, nope, not doing it. Just going to record a bunch of me and see how it goes. Now, could it have not worked out? Perhaps. But I never even let that in my mind. To me, it was always me showing up, sharing information with you to serve. So my number 1 lesson is do what you love. Screw everybody else's idea of what your business needs to be. Yes, you can listen to coaches and advice, and I encourage everybody to have a coach. But if there's something that you're really passionate about, do it, because I guarantee you your energy is going to be behind it, and you're going to be showing up with the right intentions, and it's going to be something you're going to be excited about. Which leads me to lesson number 2, which is, in order to do anything successfully, but particularly me and my podcast, I needed to be consistent and to show up and promote my podcast consistently. One of the mistakes that I see so many people make, like right now, everybody and their brother has a podcast, which is fine. It just means that you have to be aggressive in promoting your podcast. If you don't have a podcast, this theme applies to whatever channel you are marketing on. You have to show up and promote your message consistently. So a couple things that I've done to promote my podcast consistently. I have, every time I record an episode, I email my email list about it. I tell people on Instagram about it. Sometimes, not all the times, I post on Facebook about it. I tell people about it. I mention it all the time. It is something that you have to relentlessly promote. Nobody is going to just accidentally have a successful podcast. I mean, maybe there's an exception and maybe someone has done that, but generally you have to show up and be consistent and promote it. I I guess I haven't made a schedule for myself where it's like, hey, I record an episode every Tuesday or every single night or anything like that. For me, it's this this format, a podcasting format, allows me to record things when it's convenient for me, not when it's necessarily convenient for everybody else, which is another benefit of this. But I still have been really consistent. There have been weeks where I've done three in a week. There have been weeks when I've done none in a week. But overall, if you average what I've done, it's about one a week, which is totally achievable for anybody, regardless of their schedule. I have done this in the midst of some of the craziest, personally and professionally insane schedules I've ever been through in my life. You can certainly find 20 minutes in your day to record a piece of content and to share that consistently over the, 2 years. So anyways, number two, be consistent and promote it consistently. Number three, and this is a little bit similar to what I said in number one, but I think it's really important that your marketing plan be in line with your zone of genius. Some of you are so creative and you are having a blast with formats like TikTok and Reels. I'm good at it, but I'm like, that's not my zone of genius. I do it and it turns out really well, but that's not like where I get fired up. Video is amazing. I do it. It's not where I get fired up. My zone of genius is connecting through speaking to people, no matter what the format is. And so, what is your zone of genius? Your marketing plan should be broad, of course, but I really recommend you to find the thing that makes you excited. Find the thing that it's where you come alive, and then do that religiously all day long, not really all day long, every single day, but like as often as you can, as consistently as you can. So let's go back to my first example. If you really like making funny videos, particularly in the short video format, maybe you need to be doing TikTok and Reels every single day, and that's your base, right? And then beyond that, sure, like publish some YouTube videos or do some Facebook Lives or whatever else is on the menu, but you know that you are going to consistently forever do that as it is working. I think it's important to not look to your left and your right. Again, there's so many people that are going to tell you what's working for them, and that's awesome. That also might work for you. But if you have a tug in your heart that says, hey, I need to be doing a podcast, or I need to be doing, maybe it's blogging, maybe it's just showing up on Instagram and serving like you do, like you have been there. Whatever it is, don't worry about what people are finding on their left and their right and finding success with. If you are intrigued by that and you find that it is within your zone of genius and it gets you really excited, yes, dive in. You can always change. But if someone's telling you, for example, that you need to be on Clubhouse and you just don't see the value, awesome. Don't be on Clubhouse. It's fine. Or the same thing with TikTok or YouTube or anything. Pick your platform. Be convicted in the fact that this is for you and this is how you're going to get your message out consistently, and just trust that people will find you. So that's my number 3 tip. Number 4 tip is do your own damn thing. Do your own thing. So this is very similar to my last tip. What I mean by this is it is totally okay to be different. When I started my podcast 2 years ago, everybody said, hey, aren't you going to get tired of interviewing people? Like, no, because I'm not going to interview people. You would have thought that I said something absolutely terrible. People were like, oh my God, wait, what? You're not going to interview people? How are you going to come up with content? I'm going to come up with content. It's super easy to do. I know who I'm serving and I know what things that they're challenged with, and I'm going to share things that have helped me that will also help them. I also am going to share my journey. I'm going to share personal stuff. I was convicted and absolutely positive that by being different, I was going to stand out. If you actually take a look at my podcast reviews on Apple iTunes, a lot of the comments that people say are that like, hey, I've never heard anybody delivering content in the way that you deliver content. That to me is the highest form of praise, and I'm so appreciative of that. So keep those reviews coming, because it's me. If I try to show up and replicate someone else's business model or someone else's personality or someone's marketing idea, it's just not going to be me. So be different. If you have a crazy idea for a YouTube channel, good, do it. If you have a crazy idea for something that might work on TikTok, good, do it. If you want to do your Instagram posts unlike anything you've ever seen, awesome, do it. If you want to, I don't care what it is, fill in the blank, good, do it. Worst case, it doesn't work. But you do your thing because, again, you're going to show up with energy that is excited. You're going to show up knowing that you have something special. And let's face it, different is usually good. I think I learned it from Diane Hockman. I don't know if she's listening or will ever hear this, but shout out to Diane. She has the phrase that she taught me that says, when everybody zigs, I zag. I'm sure a million people have said that phrase as well. When everybody's going left, I want to go right because I want to be different. I want people to go, hey, have you seen that person who does it totally different than anybody else? And now, granted, just a little disclaimer, I'm talking about marketing. I'm not talking about duplication in your business. That's a whole different topic for another episode. But I'm talking about marketing, meaning me showing up on social media and getting your attention and pulling you into my world so that I can serve you and connect with you in some sort of way. So don't stress about the details. Don't stress about how everybody else is doing it. If I had listened to everybody else in my mastermind, I'd be still doing Facebook Lives and I'd be probably not really enjoying it very much. And so dare to be different. That's my number 4 tip. Number 5 tip. For me to be successful in my podcast, I needed a deliberate marketing plan. So for me, this looked like, and I mentioned this before, sharing this to Instagram, sharing it to my email list. By the way, if you don't have an email list, you need one. You got to get it done. It's the only thing that you actually own. So I share it with my email list. I share it with Facebook sometimes. You have to show up as if the thing that you are marketing is gold, like literal gold. It is so valuable that if you don't share it with other people, that they're going to be missing out and they're going to be stuck. And you're actually doing them a disservice if you don't show up. And I see so many people. In fact, I actually coached a girl on Clubhouse. We were doing a panel on sales and marketing, and she said, I feel so bad after I record a podcast episode, sharing it with people and telling them to download my podcast. And I'm like, why? Then you clearly don't believe in what you have to say. Because if you believe in what you have to say, even if you're new at it, even if you're shy, even if you're an introvert, it does not matter. You have to believe in your message and the value that you're bringing so much that you're proud to share it everywhere. Yes, it's nerve-wracking at first. Yes, you think everybody's going to hate it. Whatever. You'll get over that. Trust me. People will love it if you are showing up as yourself. A couple other just more tactical tips on the marketing side and that marketing plan for your podcast. You really have to rely on keywords, much like you would in blogging. And so the title of my podcast, Secrets to Marketing Your Wellness MLM, has the word marketing in it, wellness, and MLM, and that is not by mistake. I see so many people naming their podcasts like, go get it, girl, or something like that. Like, I'm sure someone on here will, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Some super vague, really nebulous podcast name, which is fine for the cute factor, but it's not going to get you anything in searchability. Like, it's not going to get you any people finding your podcast accidentally. My name of my podcast is super lame. I'm just going to be the first one to tell you that. It's very literal, but I will tell you that people find me. People find me through searches all the time. Similarly, in my podcast descriptions, I use those words. I use the words that I want people to find me and learn about. Network marketing, Instagram, attraction marketing. Those are the types of things that I talk about all day long. And those are the words that I use in my podcast episode descriptions. So people are finding me by searching words on Spotify and Apple iTunes. So hopefully one of you guys who has a podcast will put that into good use. Okay, last thing that I've learned over 100 podcast episodes is once you have that vision of what you're going to do, you really have to stand your ground. I will tell you that I have had, I don't even know, countless, hundreds, literally hundreds of people email me to ask to be a guest on my show, which I'm flattered by and I'm super grateful for. But my vision of my podcast is not a guest interview show. And so I've had to politely tell those people no. People will blow your inbox up. People will ask you to modify your vision, no matter if it's of a podcast or something else. People will take their goals and desires and expect you to implement them. And you've really got to figure out what your vision is and stand your ground. So for 2 years, I have said no to hundreds of people coming on as guests, people who've wanted to promote their own stuff, people who maybe I've liked, but it's just not in line with what I want to do in serving you. And so thank you guys for sharing this. I really appreciate that. I just, you've just got to stand your ground. I think that's true for anything in life, but particularly in your style of marketing. What I mean by that really is you've got to be a leader. You've got to take your message and give that message to the world, deliver that relentlessly, and stand your ground and be confident in that. And I am just obsessed with the topic and the idea of leadership. Every one of you is a leader if you are showing up with a message and getting people to follow you. That's really what it's about, right? People say, I want more followers, I want more followers. But really, to me, it's how can I be a better leader? Forget the follower count. The followers will come when you have content and a message that is worthy of following, which means that you showing up as a leader is the most important thing that I can possibly think of. And so, standing your ground, having a message, and doing it religiously is the key to success on any platform, whether that's a podcast or whatever. So I hope that that helped. I hope that that gave you just a little bit of food for thought, and that whether or not you want a podcast, not my intention with this episode, but just to make you think about how are you showing up online and what is it getting you? All of these efforts have thankfully gotten me to the point where I've got a pretty successful podcast. I mean, my goal was to use my podcast for lead generation, to grow my email list, to grow my business, and to expand my reach of my message. And I have definitely met the mark on all of those. It's opened so many doors, and I'm so grateful for all of you that have downloaded this and have listened. I had a message from someone a couple weeks ago that said, I'm starting your podcast from episode 1. And I was like, oh God, I was so terrible. The first couple episodes were terrible, terrible. I was nervous. I was sweating. And thank God now 101 episodes, I don't get nervous anymore. I love it. It's so much fun for me. It's easy. I'm in a groove, right? So it's been an amazing, amazing journey. And you can actually follow that journey by listening to the podcast. So many of you have been here since the beginning, and I'm just so grateful for you. So yeah, someone says in the comments, focus follows vision. And that is so, 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 so true. Once you set that vision for yourself and you know where you're going to go, it's liberating. It's really liberating. So anyways, I encourage you all to figure out what is exciting for you, what marketing method that maybe you're showing up at, but you're not fully showing up at. Maybe you really haven't talked about the things you think about. You know, you've got these topics that are kind of in your head, but they really haven't come out yet. I would encourage you to just be yourself as much as humanly possible on whatever platform that you choose. And I think that over time, you will find that people respond really well to that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. One last plug. If you have not gone to sorayagoddard.com/podcast, I encourage you to do that. There you can download my 100 Facebook Live titles. I titled it that, but really those titles can be used for Instagram post ideas, Clubhouse room ideas. They are just good wellness marketing titles. I know that if you download that PDF, they will give you inspiration to do your own content creation on whatever your favorite platform is. That will also put you on my email list, which you will get all sorts of good sales and courses and ways to work with me, and then just good information about all sorts of stuff that I like to send out. So I would encourage you to go to sorayagoddard.com/podcast and download that. And I will be able to talk to you over email as well. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for supporting and downloading every episode of my podcast. It just means the world to me. And hopefully I will much more quickly get to the 200 episode mark. I have no idea when, but sometime soon. So I will see you guys then. Bye.